So you're thinking about starting an Etsy shop, but you're stuck on one very real question. Should I sell digital products or go the print on demand route? Hi, I'm Jai. I do graphic design for a living. But at night, I work on two Etsy stores, one for digital products and one for print on demand. These two paths might look similar on the surface. They both involve design, they both live on Etsy, and they both get tossed around a lot together on YouTube. But I've found that the day-to-day experience of running each kind of shop is pretty different. So if you've been feeling a little stuck with analysis paralysis with which direction you should go, I hope this helps you untangle some of that. I've devised 8 criteria for comparison, but it's not really about which one performs better than the other. It's more about which one fits you better. I hope you stick around for the last 2 because they're the ones that weigh the most heavily for most people. Let's get into it. Number 1, approach. Let's start with the energy behind each of these paths because that shapes everything else. With digital products, the intention is usually to solve a problem. You're not just making something pretty, you're creating something useful. Maybe it helps someone plan a wedding, maybe it saves them time at work, maybe it helps them save a lot of money. So your mindset becomes, what does this person need? And how can I help them get there faster or more easily? On the flip side, print on demand is about evoking a feeling. It's a little more like art. You're helping someone express themselves, maybe through humor, identity, nostalgia, or aesthetic. The difference in energy is subtle, but it matters. Digital products are like being a problem solver. POD is like being a vibe curator. So just ask yourself, do I get more excited when I make something helpful? Or do I feel more alive when I make something relatable or funny or emotional? It's about what kind of connection you want to have with your customer. Number 2, design skill. Now let's talk about design because, well, design is at the heart of both of these. But the way you approach design is totally different. Print on demand is, in some ways, more forgiving. Some of the best-selling products are super simple, like a black t-shirt with white text that reads, "Tired but cute." That's it. No fancy graphics, no overthinking. If you can match the right words with the right customer, even a Canva font can work. Also, AI tools have made this even more accessible. Tools like Kittl, Midjourney, and even Canva's own AI features make it easier for people with no design background to come up with something sellable. But digital products require a bit more intentional design thinking because it's not just about what looks nice, it's about how it functions. If you're designing a planner, it needs to be readable, intuitive, and not overwhelming. If you're making a website template, the layout, flow, and spacing, all of that needs to make sense. You're not just thinking about how it looks, you're thinking about how someone's going to use it. It's more layered, it's slower, and it takes a little more creative stamina. So again, check with yourself. Do you enjoy that kind of detailed work? Do you like spending time perfecting layout and structure? Or do you prefer quick, expressive, done-in-a-day kind of design work? There's no right answer, it's just knowing your creative rhythm. Number 3, barrier to entry. Okay, let's talk about how easy it is to get started with each. In general, print on demand has a low barrier to entry. You could open a POD store tonight, upload a few designs to your chosen print provider, and have it live before bed. It's more plug and play. You don't exactly need to understand layers or file types or fonts beyond the basics. And the tech side is minimal, especially if you use an integration like Printify. You make the design, they handle the rest. Digital products, on the other hand, can vary a lot. If you're selling clip art or simple journaling pages, that's a fairly low barrier. But if you're selling editable templates, you'll need to learn Canva Pro or Corel or Template. If you're doing planners, you'll need to understand PDF exporting, page linking, and how to design for usability. If you're doing Notion templates, well, I'm not a Notion expert, but I'm sure there's a learning curve there too. So this skill barrier is higher, but there's the good news. The higher barrier actually protects you. Not everyone's willing to climb it, so the competition can be smaller in some of those niches. And that means if you're willing to learn, you're opening yourself up to less crowded and more profitable spaces. Number 4, financial investment. Let's talk about money. This one's tricky because both digital product selling and POD are often marketed as low startup costs. which is kind of true, but let's break that down a little. Digital products, in most cases, don't cost you anything to create. You can use free tools like Canva or even Google Docs to make your first product. But once you start making more advanced or editable templates, you'll probably need to invest in something like Canva Pro to easily share those templates. Also, some platforms like Template have fees. And of course, Etsy listing fees apply no matter what you sell. Print on demand sounds free, and it technically is, until you get your first sale. Because when someone buys a product, you have to pay your print provider upfront, and then Etsy pays you back after the order is fulfilled. But Etsy also puts reserves on your account when you're new. That means they hold onto a chunk of your money, sometimes for weeks or months. In my case, it took almost 2 months before I got access to all of my money. So I had to pay for each order out of my own pocket during that time. And in that period, my bank account was down by at least $500. That amount might seem big or small depending on where you are financially, but if you're working with limited funds, that cash flow issue can be a bit stressful. So digital products may be cheaper at front, POD might cost nothing at first, but requires a little cushion once you start selling. Number 5, time investment. Print-on-demand products are generally fast to create. I've made designs in 10 minutes before and sometimes only spend 15 minutes from design to publishing that listing on Etsy. But once the product sells, the clock starts ticking. There's production time, shipping, customer messages, and if any, the occasional returns and refunds. Even though you're not physically handling the product, you're still involved in the process and you need to be aware of where things are at. Also, most POD sellers will tell you that it takes time to build momentum. You might need 100 listings before the algorithm takes you seriously, so it's a volume game. Meanwhile, digital products are more slow upfront. You might spend a couple of hours, even a few days designing and testing long-form digital products like social media bundles or an ebook template. But once it's done, that product can sell for years. No shipping, no wait time, no fulfillment stress. So it's much more work upfront, but after the heavy lifting and designing, it's much more passive. Number 6, customer support load. Customer support might seem like a small thing at first, but over time, it really shapes the experience as a seller. With digital products, support tends to be more light. Most of the questions you'll get are pretty predictable, like, I can't find the file. How do I edit this on my phone? Can you give me access? Or Etsy didn't email me anything. It's mostly tech-related questions, and once you've sold the product a few times, you'll start to see patterns. If I had a nickel for every time a customer asked a question that was already in the listing, I'd have $1,000 by now. So to save even more time, you can write up some good FAQs or auto replies, and most people will be fine. For print on demand, there's a whole other layer of customer support. And honestly, most of it is stuff that's completely out of your control. You might get messages like, my package hasn't arrived yet, the mug was chipped, I didn't realize I ordered the wrong size, can I exchange it? Even if you're working with a really solid print provider, these things can still happen. Packages get delayed, items get damaged. It's just part of selling physical products. And the tricky part is, Etsy customers often expect Amazon-level service. Fast responses, fast shipping, seamless everything. So sometimes you'll find yourself having to explain production timelines or shipping delays or why a return isn't possible if the item was customized. And that can be a little uncomfortable, especially if you're just starting out and figuring out your policies. Now let me talk about reviews for a second, because they really do matter. A few good reviews can make such a big difference when you're trying to build momentum, especially in the early days when your shop still feels invisible. And what I've noticed is that people seem way more willing to leave reviews for physical items than they do for digital products. In my digital product shop, I usually get about 1 review out of every 25 orders. But for my print-on-demand shop, I'm seeing 1 review out of every 7 orders. And that's without asking. I'm not sending follow-ups or messages or anything. So even though POD comes with more support issues, you also get more social proof in return. That's just something to keep in mind if reviews are something you're trying to build up early. Number 7, profit margin. Let's break down how much money you can actually keep from each sale because, let's be real, That's what most of us are thinking about when we're trying to decide which business model makes the most sense. With digital products, once you've created the product, every sale after that is almost pure profit. You've already done the work, there's no production cost, no shipping, no handling, just the Etsy fees, and maybe some ad spend if you choose to promote it. For example, if you sell a digital template for $10, Etsy takes a small cut, usually around 6.5% in transaction fees, plus 20 cents for the listing. So you're walking away with something like $8 to $8.30 per sale, give or take. And that's every time it sells. So if it took you an hour to make that template and it ends up selling over 30 times in the next few months, that's over $240 from just 1 hour of work. That's where the magic of digital really starts to show. Now with print on demand, things work a little differently. Let's say you're selling a hoodie. It costs about $20 to produce through your print provider. You list it on Etsy for $39. Then once it sells, Etsy takes their fees again, the transaction fee, processing fee, listing fee. And you might also have to factor in a small shipping charge depending on your provider. After everything, you're probably walking away with $8 to $10 in profit per order. That's around 20 to 30% profit margin, which is pretty standard for physical products on Etsy. So yes, the profit margin is lower compared to digital, but the order value tends to be higher. People are often more willing to drop $30, $40, maybe even $60 on a hoodie, mug bundle, or custom sweatshirt, especially around the holidays, birthdays, or gift-giving seasons. That can add up fast. Meanwhile, digital products tend to live in a lower price range, usually between $3 to $15. Unless you're offering something really robust like a business template bundle or a premium planner. So while you're keeping more money per sale, you might need to sell more items to reach your income goals. That's the trade-off. So digital gives you higher margins, less overhead, and more automation, but often lower price points and lower conversion volume if your product isn't super targeted. POD gives you higher cart values, and it's easier to ride seasonal waves, but your margins are tighter and there's more upfront coordination and support involved. So in the end, both are profitable, but in different ways. It just really depends on your pricing strategy, your niche, and how you scale. If you're someone who wants to build once and let it earn passively, digital might speak to you more. If you enjoy launching new designs often and tapping into trends or seasonal demand, POD could be a better fit. Number 8, competition and saturation. Okay, let's be real for a second. Etsy is saturated. No matter what you're planning to sell, chances are someone's probably already doing it. But here's the thing, that's not a reason to give up before you even start. Saturation just means the obvious ideas are already taken. The basics are covered, but there's still so much room for creativity, for fresh takes, and for products that speak to someone really specific. Here's what I've noticed from spending way too much time browsing and researching. Digital products feel most saturated in the design-heavy Canva template space for things like Instagram packs, planners, wedding invitations. Print-on-demand feels more crowded in the novelty t-shirt world, especially those niches like moms, teachers, dog lovers, etc. But even in those very saturated categories, there are still little pockets of opportunity. With digital, people aren't just looking for something pretty. They're often looking for something useful, something that saves them time or helps them in a specific situation. With print on demand, yes, there's a lot of competition, but there's also a lot of search volume because more people go on Etsy looking for physical products like gifts, home decor, clothing, mugs, and these are things people are actively searching for all the time. And if your design hits the right note emotionally, especially around gift-giving season, it doesn't have to be wildly unique to succeed. Digital also has this little superpower that if you make the right thing at the right time, something that solves a problem or hits a need right now, you can make sales even though you only have a handful of listings. And I've seen it happen in my shop. I've had digital products take off with almost no traffic, simply because it was exactly what someone was looking for. Not just kind of what they needed, but exactly. So if you're feeling overwhelmed by the competition, take a breath. Instead of worrying about how many people are selling what you want to sell, start focusing on the small ways you can do it differently. Like, can you speak to a more specific person? Can you niche down just a little further? Can you give it a new twist, a new tone, a different visual style, or bundle things in a smarter way? There is still space. Not in the mass market, but in the in-between spaces that bigger sellers overlook. That's where the opportunity lies. So how do you choose? You've heard the breakdown, you know how each one works, but now you're still sitting here and going, okay, cool, but which one is right for me? Let me offer a few questions to reflect on. What do you enjoy making when no one else is watching? Do you get more joy from solving problems or from expressing feelings? Do you like to sit and tinker with layouts and details? Or do you like to whip up something fun and move on? How much time and energy do you realistically have to give right now? Are you okay waiting a few months for your first sale, or do you want something that might generate a quick win? And then, maybe most importantly, what feels sustainable for you? Because this just isn't about what makes money, it's about what you can stick with long enough for it to start making money. Now, if you're still undecided, I just want to say,
¿Por qué no las dos?
you don't have to pick just one. In fact, you can combine both in the same shop as long as you're serving a clear type of customer. And I've done this in my current print-on-demand store where I use digital templates to serve as loss leaders and get me my first few sales. Let me give you a few examples. A new mom might want baby onesies and printable milestone cards for her albums. A bride-to-be might want bachelorette shirts and editable invitations for the party. And someone who loves crochet might want a cozy yarn-themed sweater and a set of digital crochet patterns. So you're not niching down to products. You're niching down to people. Think about who you're helping, not just what you're selling. When you frame it that way, then mixing digital and POD in one shop can make sense. But, and this is a big one, I wouldn't mix clip art with POD in the same shop. Because clip art and POD both need volume to succeed. If you're trying to do 500 clip art listings and 300 shirt designs, that's like 2 full-time businesses. And it might cause more confusion down the line as well. So in that case, it's better to pick one and go all in. But if you're sticking to templates and helpful tools that naturally complement a physical product, that's totally fair game. Alright, I know that was a lot, but if you're still here, thank you for sitting with me through all of it. I know how overwhelming it can feel when you're just standing at the starting line, not sure which path to take. And I hope this helped you feel a little more grounded, a little more clear, and maybe a little more excited about what's possible. Whichever one you choose, digital or print on demand or both, just remember the most important thing is that you start. You can always pivot, you can always learn, you can always shift and grow and refine. You don't need to have it all figured out today. Just start with one small step. Maybe that's figuring out which type of product feels more natural for you to create, something that actually feels enjoyable to design, or at least not overwhelming. Then make another one, and another, and keep building little by little until you've got a handful of listings that feel good enough to launch with. You don't need a massive shop or a perfect plan. Just enough to keep moving. Momentum comes from action, not from having it all figured out. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like and leave a little comment below about what you're thinking of starting. Or just say hi, and I'll see you in the next one.